The instant the small boy's voice echoed through the expansive atrium of the Washington Square Mall in Oregon, it was as if the very air molecules stilled. It was a typical Saturday morning, the mundane hum of fluorescent lights, the faint, generic music drifting from unseen stores, and the pervasive, sweet aroma of cinnamon pretzels clinging to the air. But for Nathan Collins, the world telescoped down to a single, piercing point when his son tugged urgently at his hand, pointing a small, accusing finger at a woman standing mere feet away. There she stood, poised between steps, a soft leather purse dangling from her elbow, and within its depths, visible through the slightly ajar flap, nestled a small, framed photograph, a picture of his own face. Before the story unfolds, if you believe in the power of kindness, the unwavering strength of faith, and the transformative potential of second chances, please show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Your engagement fuels our ability to bring more of these heartwarming stories to life. Nathan felt a sudden, fierce drumming in his ears, the pulse of his own blood echoing like a frantic drumbeat. He blinked hard, convinced his eyes were playing tricks on him, conjuring illusions born of fatigue. But no, there it was, his picture, undeniably his. The very same headshot he'd taken years ago for the local community volunteer page, a relic from a time when he'd been more involved, more open. But why would a complete stranger be carrying it around? And why was she staring at him with such intensity, her eyes wide as if she'd just witnessed a ghost rising from the morning sunlight? The woman, Ava Thompson, cleared her throat softly, the sound barely audible above the mall's gentle din. Slowly, almost protectively, she closed her purse, as if guarding a secret too fragile, too precious to be exposed to the harsh glare of the world. She was draped in a classic camel-colored coat, its soft lines hinting at a timeless elegance. Waves of chestnut hair framed her face, and her expression was a complex tapestry woven from surprise, curiosity, and something that, if he dared to hope, might have been hope. A delicate tremble danced in her fingers, and there was a flicker of hesitation in her movements, a dance between wanting to approach and wanting to flee. The moment stretched, taut and shimmering, holding them all suspended in its breathless embrace. 3 strangers and 1 little boy, unknowingly linking their lives together in a single, shared breath. Nathan wasn't a man easily rattled. He was a former firefighter, a veteran of countless infernos, who had seen flames consume entire houses and held the trembling hands of victims who had lost everything. But this was different. This felt deeply personal, resonating with him on a level he didn't yet understand. His life had settled into a predictable rhythm these last few years. Rise, work at the construction firm, pick up his son, Ethan, from preschool, make dinner, sleep, repeat. Since the divorce, he had learned to constrict his world into manageable segments, a self-imposed orbit of safety and routine. Everything outside that small circle felt like a risk, and he had stopped taking risks a long time ago. But now, here he stood, face to face with a woman who looked at him as though he were someone she had been searching for, someone profoundly important. Ethan tugged at his hand again, this time with a child's impatient insistence, repeating the sentence that shattered the fragile veil of silence surrounding them. Daddy, that's the lady who keeps your picture in her bag. I saw it. Nathan felt heat surge to his face, a blush of embarrassment mingled with a strange, burgeoning curiosity. Ava's breath caught audibly, and she took a tentative step forward, closing the distance between them. But it wasn't mere embarrassment that flooded her expression. It was something softer, something deeper, an emotion anchored in a story that Nathan had yet to hear. The mall around them continued its ceaseless activity, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding. Shoppers bustled by, their laughter echoing off the polished floors. Escalators hummed their mechanical song, carrying people to and fro. But the 3 of them remained isolated within their own quiet pocket of the universe, a sanctuary of unspoken words and mounting anticipation. Something was about to shift. Nathan sensed it, the way one senses the distant rumble of thunder long before the sky begins to darken, a primal instinct warning of an approaching storm. Ava finally spoke, not with words, but with her eyes. They held a depth of emotion that resonated with him, a softness that suggested broken pieces carefully, painstakingly stitched back together. For a fleeting moment, Nathan felt as if he already knew her, not from a conscious memory, but from the quiet familiarity of someone who had walked through her own share of shadows, someone who understood the silent language of pain. Nathan cleared his throat, suddenly unsure of where to begin, what to say. But the moment he opened his mouth to speak, she averted her gaze, as if gathering a reservoir of courage that had eluded her until this moment. And then, she began to walk slowly, hesitantly, toward the seating area off to the side, silently inviting him to follow. Something deep inside him, a primal instinct he couldn't ignore, told him that he needed to hear whatever she had come to say. Something inside him whispered that this moment wasn't a mere coincidence, that fate, perhaps, had a hand in orchestrating this unexpected encounter. He followed her, drawn by an invisible thread of curiosity and a growing sense of destiny. Ethan skipped happily beside him, blissfully unaware of the emotional tornado gathering overhead, the unspoken tension crackling in the air. They sat on the bench, the faux leather cool against their skin, and Ava perched across from them, her purse resting beside her on the seat like a fragile container of secrets, a Pandora's box waiting to be opened. When she finally spoke, her voice was gentle, almost hesitant, but it carried the unmistakable weight of years, the echo of experiences both beautiful and heartbreaking. She told him that she used to work as a nurse in the oncology ward at St. Helena Medical Center. Nathan felt his body stiffen, a visceral reaction that surprised even him. He knew that place all too well. His late sister, Megan, had waged her valiant battle against cancer there before passing away 3 years earlier. The wound, though seemingly healed, still throbbed with a dull, persistent ache whenever it was touched, a constant reminder of his loss. Ava saw that subtle shift in him, the almost imperceptible clenching of his jaw, the momentary flicker of pain in his eyes, and softened her tone, her voice becoming even more gentle and soothing. She explained that she had taken care of Megan during her final months, that Megan had spent countless nights talking about her older brother, painting vivid portraits of him with words. She described him as strong, selfless, the rock of their family. She said Megan had spoken of how he had essentially raised her after their parents passed away, sacrificing his own dreams to ensure she had a good life, how he would give anything for the people he loved, and how he deserved someone who saw him for who he truly was, someone who appreciated his unwavering loyalty and his boundless capacity for love. Nathan swallowed hard, struggling to maintain his composure. His sister had been the heart of his world, his confidant, his best friend. Hearing her name spoken by a stranger, a woman he had never met, stirred emotions he had carefully kept buried, a tidal wave of grief and longing threatening to overwhelm him. Ava continued, her voice filled with a quiet reverence. She said that Megan had given her that picture, the very one now resting in her purse, the night before she passed. She had whispered that if Ava ever felt lost in her own life, adrift in a sea of uncertainty, she should look at the photo and remember the man who embodied resilience and kindness, a reminder that good people still existed in the world, that hope had a face, a tangible representation of goodness and light. Ava discreetly wiped away a stray tear that escaped the corner of her eye, a silent testament to the profound impact Megan had had on her life. She said that she had gone through her own storm in the years since a painful divorce, a devastating heartbreak, the shattering loss of a pregnancy. And Megan's words, her unwavering belief in the inherent goodness of people, had carried her through the darkest of nights, a beacon in the storm. She had kept the picture all this time, not because she expected to find Nathan, not because she harbored some secret hope of romance, but because it reminded her that light still existed somewhere in the world, that even in the face of unimaginable pain, there was still beauty and kindness to be found. Nathan felt his throat tighten, the words caught in his chest, choking him. He had never heard this piece of his sister's story, this act of quiet generosity, this passing of the torch of hope. She had always been the one giving hope to others, even when she herself was slipping away, her own light flickering precariously. But something else weighed in Ava's voice, a subtle undercurrent of emotion that hinted at something more than mere gratitude, more than grief, more than memory. She confessed that she sometimes visited the places Megan had mentioned in her stories. The cozy coffee shop she loved, the scenic walking trail she often described, hoping, perhaps foolishly, that one day she would see the brother she admired so deeply, the man whose face she had carried with her for so long. Not because she expected anything from him, not because she was looking for a connection, but simply because she wanted to tell him thank you. To tell him that his sister, even in her own pain, had inspired someone else to keep going, to keep fighting, to keep believing in the possibility of a brighter future. Nathan didn't speak, couldn't speak. His heart had become a heavy, trembling thing in his chest, threatening to shatter with the weight of unspoken emotions. This woman, this stranger who had entered his life so unexpectedly, had carried a piece of his sister's love through her darkest nights, cherishing it like a precious jewel. And now, she stood before him, offering that same love, that same unwavering belief in the power of human connection, shining in her eyes. The moment stretched gently between them, a silent bridge spanning their separate worlds. Not awkward, not rushed, just a soft understanding, a shared sense of loss and a burgeoning hope for something more. Ethan, sensing his father's emotional turmoil, climbed onto Nathan's lap, resting his head on his father's shoulder, seeking comfort in his familiar presence. Nathan wrapped an arm around his son, grounding himself in the reality of his love, the unwavering anchor in his life. For years, he had kept his heart guarded, building walls around it to protect himself from further pain, refusing to let anyone in for fear of being hurt again. But something about Ava, her story, her sincerity, her undeniable connection to Megan, felt different, felt like a door gently creaking open, inviting him to step into a new, unknown territory. Ava looked at Ethan and smiled softly, her eyes filled with genuine warmth. She said that Megan had talked about him too, even though she never got the chance to meet him. She had hoped that Nathan would find happiness again, that he would find stability, love, and companionship. She had wanted him to have someone who would care for his little boy with the same fierce devotion he had shown her all her life, someone who would cherish Ethan as much as he did. Nathan closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the weight of her words to sink in, the unexpected emotional impact of this chance encounter. He hadn't expected this day, this unexpected collision of past and present. He hadn't expected this woman, this messenger of hope and healing. He hadn't expected his sister's love to echo back to him in such a profound, unexpected way, reverberating through the years and touching his heart with its gentle grace. But life, he realized, had its own quiet, mysterious way of stitching broken hearts together, of finding light in the darkest of places. For the next hour, they talked, not in hurried, anxious words, but in a gentle, unhurried unfolding, allowing their stories to intertwine and connect. Ava shared stories of Megan's infectious laughter, her stubbornness, her late-night confessions, her unwavering spirit in the face of adversity. Nathan shared memories of their childhood, their struggles, their dreams, the bond that had sustained them through thick and thin. With each passing minute, something delicate began to grow between them, a fragile seedling of hope pushing through the hardened soil of their past. Not romance, not yet, but connection, a deep and genuine understanding that transcended mere words. Real human connection, the kind that nourished the soul and healed the heart. Ava admitted that she sometimes felt guilty carrying the picture around, as if she'd been clinging to someone she had never truly met, someone who existed only in Megan's stories and in her own imagination. Nathan surprised himself by telling her that he wasn't upset. If anything, he was grateful. It felt like Megan had left him one final gift, a parting gesture of love and hope, someone who understood pieces of his heart before he had even spoken them, someone who could see him for who he truly was. People drifted in and out of the mall around them, oblivious to the quiet miracle unfolding in their midst. But the three of them remained cocooned in their own quiet bubble, sharing pieces of themselves like fragile shards of stained glass, slowly piecing together a beautiful mosaic of shared experiences and newfound hope. When it was time to leave, Ava stood slowly, a hint of reluctance in her movements. Nathan felt a tug of something he hadn't felt in years, a quiet longing for connection, a desire to prolong this unexpected encounter. She reached into her purse and pulled out the framed picture, the photograph that had brought them together. She held it out to him with both hands, her voice trembling slightly as she said that she felt it was finally time to return it to its rightful owner, the man in the picture. But Nathan gently closed her fingers around the frame, refusing to take it back. He told her that Megan had given it to her for a reason, that it had served as a source of strength and inspiration during her darkest times. And maybe, just maybe, that reason wasn't finished yet, that there was still a purpose for that picture in her life. Ava's breath hitched at his words, a wave of emotion washing over her face. Something hopeful flickered in her eyes, a spark of possibility igniting in the darkness. Ethan, oblivious to the weight of their unspoken emotions, tugged at Nathan's sleeve and whispered loudly enough for both adults to hear that he liked her, that she seemed nice, that he hoped they would see her again. Ava laughed softly, a genuine, heartfelt sound that resonated with Nathan, and as he watched her, he felt a warmth bloom in his chest, a feeling of hope and anticipation that he hadn't experienced in years. They exchanged numbers, not in a forced or rushed way, but naturally, organically, as if the universe itself had nudged their hands together, orchestrating this meeting with a gentle hand. As Ava walked away, she looked back once, offering a quiet, grateful smile, a silent acknowledgement of the connection they had forged, a promise that this wasn't goodbye, but rather the beginning of something new. Nathan squeezed Ethan's hand gently, feeling something inside him settle, a sense of peace and contentment he hadn't known was possible. Something old had closed, a chapter of his life finally coming to an end, and something new had begun, a fresh start, a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Months later, Nathan would look back on that day in the Washington Square Mall as the day that changed everything, the pivotal moment that altered the course of his life. The day a simple photo, carried through years of grief and hope, opened the door to healing, to companionship, to a love he never thought he'd deserve again. But for now, standing in that bright mall hallway, bathed in the fluorescent glow of possibility, he simply whispered a silent thank you to Megan, to fate, to the gentle grace woven through the unexpected moments of life. If this story resonated with you, if it touched your heart and inspired you, please show your support by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Your engagement helps us bring more stories of hope, healing, and human connection to the world.